The voicemail said, "Family can petition for emergency guardianship." Installed cameras the next day and caught them rehearsing a fake psychiatric crisis. Hey friends. Got a sec? Drop your thoughts in the comments and hit subscribe. It's quick for you, but it really means a lot to the channel. Alright, let's dive into today's story. Original post. I never thought I'd be writing something like this, but after another 14-hour day at my veterinary practice, I'm sitting in my office at 11 p.m., too exhausted to drive home yet too wound up to sleep if I did. The fluorescent lights are giving me a headache, but not as much as the 43 missed calls from my mother. Let me provide some context. I'm a veterinary surgeon who opened my own practice 3 years ago after working at emergency animal hospitals since graduating. The practice is my entire life. I purchased and renovated a building in the downtown area, installed state-of-the-art surgical equipment, and built a reputation for handling complex cases other clinics won't touch. Today alone, I performed 2 orthopedic surgeries, an emergency foreign body removal, and a delicate eye surgery on a 10-year-old cat whose owner drove 3 hours to see me specifically. My mother works as a life coach, one of those people who charges substantial fees to tell others how to live their lives despite her own being a carefully curated illusion. She has a glossy website full of testimonials, runs workshops on authentic living, and maintains a social media presence that would make you think she's some sort of enlightenment guru. The irony isn't lost on me that someone who preaches emotional intelligence and healthy boundaries has been systematically destroying mine for years. My younger sister operates a nail salon from a rented space in a strip mall. She's talented at what she does, but she's never been particularly motivated to grow her business. She works maybe 20 hours a week, posts constantly on social media about her struggles with anxiety, and has developed a pattern of crisis after crisis that somehow always requires financial intervention. The current situation started 6 weeks ago. My mother called during a surgery. She knows my schedule, knows I can't answer during procedures, but calls anyway. When I finally returned her call that evening, she launched into a rehearsed speech about my sister's deteriorating mental health. According to her, my sister had been having panic attacks that were preventing her from working. The strip mall location was triggering her anxiety, the fluorescent lighting was causing migraines, and the commute was adding to her stress. She needs a safe space to work, my mother said, her voice taking on that particular tone she uses when she's about to make an unreasonable request sound like a moral obligation. Somewhere familiar, somewhere that feels like family. I knew immediately where this was heading. My clinic building has additional space, rooms I've been planning to convert for expansion, to add rehabilitation services and possibly bring in another veterinarian. But I kept those plans to myself, having learned long ago that any information I share becomes ammunition. She could use your extra rooms, my mother continued. Just temporarily, until she gets back on her feet. You'd barely notice she was there. I explained, calmly, that a veterinary clinic and a nail salon have completely different requirements. The licensing alone would be a nightmare. The insurance implications. The health department regulations. The simple fact that my clients bring in sick, stressed, and sometimes aggressive animals that shouldn't be anywhere near a beauty service business. You always have excuses when it comes to helping family, she responded, her voice sharp. All those animals you help, but you can't help your own sister? She's having a mental health crisis, and you're worried about paperwork. The calls have escalated since then. Daily guilt trips about my selfishness. Text messages with articles about suicide rates. Voicemails where my mother cries about how she's failed as a parent because her children can't support each other. She's even started showing up at my clinic during business hours, telling my receptionist she needs to speak with me about a family emergency, which turns out to be another variation of the same demand. My sister has joined the campaign, though her approach is different. She sends me photos of herself crying. Long messages about how the strip mall is killing her soul. Voice notes where she hyperventilates and says she doesn't know how much longer she can go on. Last week, she posted on social media about how some family members only care about money and success, not mental health, a post my mother shared with a comment about the importance of compassion. Here's what they don't mention. I paid for my sister's nail technician certification. I covered 6 months of her rent when she claimed she couldn't work due to anxiety 2 years ago. I've paid for therapy that she attended twice before deciding the therapist didn't understand her. I even offered to help her create a business plan to grow her salon, an offer she declined because it would be too stressful. I've started avoiding family gatherings because they've become ambush sessions. Last Sunday, I arrived for what I thought was a birthday dinner for my aunt, only to find my mother had gathered the entire extended family for what she called an intervention, not for my sister's supposed mental health crisis, but for my lack of empathy. She stood in my aunt's living room, using her life coach voice to explain how my success had made me cold, how I'd forgotten where I came from, how my sister was crying for help and I was choosing property over people. My uncle, who owns a construction company, pulled me aside afterward and quietly said, "Don't give in. I made that mistake with my brother. Still paying for it 20 years later. But the pressure is relentless. My mother has started calling my employees, telling them she's concerned about my mental health, that I'm isolating myself from family, that she's worried I'm having a breakdown from overwork. One of my vet techs awkwardly told me about a 20-minute conversation where my mother tried to convince her to talk to me about the importance of family support. The exhaustion isn't just from the long surgeries or the endless emergencies. It's from the constant emotional warfare. Every time my phone rings, my chest tightens. Every text notification makes my stomach drop. I've started having dreams where I'm trying to perform surgery, but my mother keeps calling, and in the dream, I answer, and animals die on my operating table while she tells me I'm selfish. I love my work. I love the moment when a paralyzed dog takes its first steps after spinal surgery. I love the relief in an owner's eyes when I tell them their cat's tumor was benign. I love the thank you cards with paw prints and photos of recovered pets. But lately, I arrive at my clinic with a knot in my stomach, not from the challenges ahead, but from wondering what new manipulation tactic will be deployed today. Tomorrow, I have 3 surgeries scheduled. Complex procedures that require my full concentration. But tonight, after those 43 missed calls, there was a new voicemail. My mother's voice, calm and cold. I've been researching. Did you know that if someone is having a severe mental health crisis, family members can petition for emergency guardianship? Your sister needs help, with or without your cooperation. I hope it doesn't come to that. I'm sitting here in my office, surrounded by charts and medical equipment, wondering if she's bluffing or if I need to contact a lawyer. The cat whose eye I repaired today is sleeping peacefully in recovery, occasionally purring when the night tech checks on her. There's something deeply wrong when the animals I treat show more genuine emotion than my own family. I don't know what to do anymore. I just needed to write this down, to see it all laid out, to confirm that I'm not the villain they're painting me to be. I built this practice from nothing. I work 14-hour days to help animals and support my staff. And somehow, I'm the bad guy for not handing over my building to someone who can't even commit to a full work week. Update 1, 2 weeks later. After my original post and reading the responses, particularly the warnings about guardianship abuse and documentation, I made several decisions that have revealed the true extent of what I'm dealing with. First, I consulted with a lawyer who specializes in family law and guardianship cases. She reviewed the voicemail my mother left and immediately identified it as a threat of legal abuse. She explained that while emergency guardianship petitions exist, they require substantial evidence of incapacitation, not just mental health struggles. The fact that my sister is operating a business, maintaining social media, and actively participating in this campaign against me would make such a petition impossible to succeed. However, the lawyer warned that the attempt itself could be damaging and costly to defend against. Following legal advice, I installed security cameras in my clinic, something I should have done years ago for general security but never got around to. They cover the reception area, hallways, and entrance to my office. I also began recording all phone conversations with my mother and sister, which is legal in my state with single-party consent. What these recordings have captured in just 2 weeks has been revelatory and disturbing. The first significant incident occurred 3 days after installation. My mother arrived at the clinic during lunch hours when she knew I'd be in my office catching up on paperwork. The camera captured her entering and immediately checking if the reception desk was empty. My receptionist was on lunch break. She then proceeded to take photos of the layout, measuring doorways with her phone, and even trying doors to the unused rooms I've been planning to expand into. When my receptionist returned and asked if she needed help, my mother said, "Just familiarizing myself with the space for when my daughter moves in." My son promised her the East Wing. My receptionist, confused, said she hadn't heard about any new tenant. My mother responded, "Well, he doesn't tell you everything, does he? Family business stays in the family." But the most revealing recording came yesterday. My mother and sister met in the clinic parking lot, not realizing there was a camera covering that area. Their conversation, which lasted 23 minutes, has fundamentally changed my understanding of this situation. My sister said, "I don't know if I can keep pretending to cry every time I call him. It's exhausting." My mother responded, "You need to escalate. The panic attacks aren't working. We need documentation of a severe mental health crisis. Check yourself into the emergency room. Tell them you're having suicidal thoughts because of your work environment." But won't they actually commit me? No, you'll tell them you feel safe now that you're away from the trigger. The important thing is the paper trail. We need documentation showing you're in crisis, that your current work environment is dangerous for your mental health. Then we petition for guardianship based on your inability to make rational decisions about your well-being. My sister asked, "And that actually gives us the building?" Not directly. But once we have guardianship, we can make decisions on your behalf. We'll argue that you need to work in a family environment for your recovery. That his building is the only safe space. If he refuses, we'll have legal grounds to force the issue. Maybe even argue that his refusal is contributing to your deterioration. What if he just gives in before that? Even better. But knowing your brother, he won't. He's too stubborn, too proud of what he's built. We need to break him down first. Make him feel guilty enough that when we present the guardianship threat as the alternative, giving us the building seems like the easier choice. My sister then said something that made my blood run cold. The life coaching business isn't bringing in enough money anymore, is it? My mother's response: people are realizing they can get the same advice from podcasts for free. I need a physical location, somewhere upscale. Your brother's building is perfect, great location, already renovated, established clientele I can market to. We'll partition it. You'll have your salon, I'll have my coaching practice. He can keep a small corner for his little pet hospital. His little pet hospital. The practice I've built from nothing, where I perform complex surgeries that save lives, reduced to a dismissive phrase. The recording continues with them discussing tactics. My mother suggested having my sister post increasingly concerning messages on social media, building a public narrative of crisis. They discussed which family members to involve next, who would be most likely to pressure me. My mother even mentioned researching whether they could claim that my long work hours constitute abandonment of family responsibilities. The beauty of this, my mother said, is that either way, we win. Either he caves to save your reputation and his own, or we go through with the guardianship petition. Even if it fails, the damage to his professional reputation would be substantial. Who wants to take their pet to a vet who won't even help his mentally ill sister? I sat in my office listening to this recording, feeling a combination of rage and relief. Rage at the calculated cruelty of it all. Relief that I finally had proof I wasn't imagining things, that the manipulation was real and deliberate. I've since discovered more. My mother has been telling her life coaching clients that she's about to expand into a wellness center, that she's partnering with family to create a holistic healing space. She's been pre-selling packages for services she plans to offer from my building. My sister has been telling her nail clients that she's moving to a high-end location soon, taking appointments for a salon that doesn't exist. They've built their futures on the assumption that they can steal mine. I've compiled all the recordings and documentation. My lawyer has reviewed everything, and we're preparing a cease and desist letter. But more importantly, I'm preparing for war. Not the kind they're waging, not emotional manipulation and guilt and family ambushes. Legal, documented, decisive action. They wanted to create a paper trail? They've created one, all right. Just not the kind they intended. Update 2, 1 month later. The cease and desist letter was sent 2 weeks ago. The response was immediate and explosive, but not in the way I expected. Instead of backing down, my mother and sister escalated in ways that have ultimately led to their own downfall. Within hours of receiving the letter, my mother posted on her professional Facebook page, the one she uses for her life coaching business, a lengthy post about toxic family members, how some people choose money over blood, and how she was being legally threatened for trying to help her daughter through a mental health crisis. She didn't name me directly, but included enough details that anyone familiar with our family would know. Several of her clients commented with support, but one comment stood out. A former client wrote, "This is really unprofessional. I came to you for life coaching and you spent half our sessions talking about your son's veterinary practice and how you deserved to be part of his success. I thought it was strange then. This confirms my instincts were right." That comment was quickly deleted, but I had already screenshot it. My sister's response was more direct. She showed up at my clinic during surgery hours, demanding to be let into the back to speak with me. When my receptionist explained I was in surgery, my sister began live streaming on Instagram, walking around my waiting room, telling her followers that this was the building that could save her life, but her brother cared more about money than family. She started approaching my clients, asking them if they knew their vet was letting his sister suffer from mental health issues. One of my clients, an elderly woman with a diabetic cat, told her firmly to leave. When my sister persisted, the woman said, "That young man saved my cat's life and charges me half what any other vet would because he knows I'm on a fixed income. Don't you dare slander him in his own business." Security footage shows my sister then trying to push past my receptionist to get to the surgical suite. My receptionist, who is also a trained vet tech and takes no nonsense, physically blocked her and called the police. My sister left before they arrived, but we filed a report. The real turning point came 3 days later. My mother, perhaps panicking about her deleted Facebook comment and the police report, decided to double down. She called Adult Protective Services and reported that my sister was having a mental health crisis and I was preventing her from getting help. She claimed I was using my medical knowledge to gaslight my sister about her mental health needs. The social worker who was assigned to investigate was thorough and professional. She interviewed my sister, who couldn't keep her story straight, alternating between claiming she was fine and didn't need help, and claiming she was in severe crisis and needed my building for her recovery. The social worker also interviewed me, and I provided all the recordings and documentation. But here's where my mother's plan truly backfired. The social worker was obligated to investigate my mother's claims about my sister's mental state. In doing so, she discovered the recordings where they discussed faking a mental health crisis. She also discovered that my mother, as a life coach who claims expertise in mental health wellness, had been coaching my sister to fake symptoms. The social worker's report was damning. Not only did it clear me of any wrongdoing, but it raised serious ethical concerns about my mother's conduct as someone who presents herself as a mental health professional. I then played my final card. I contacted the International Coach Federation, where my mother has her certification. I provided them with the recordings, particularly the parts where she discusses using her life coaching knowledge to create a fake mental health crisis. I also provided screenshots of her social media posts where she was pre-selling services from a wellness center she didn't own, using her coaching credentials to legitimize the scheme. The investigation was swift. Multiple former clients came forward with similar stories. My mother had used their sessions to discuss her personal grievances, had pushed them to invest in her non-existent wellness center, and had violated numerous ethical guidelines about confidentiality by discussing their issues with others to build her network. Yesterday, I received confirmation that my mother's coaching certification has been revoked. The ICF's ethics board found her guilty of multiple violations including fraud, breach of confidentiality, and using her position to manipulate others for personal gain. But the story doesn't end there. The state licensing board for life coaches, yes, that's a thing in our state, has opened their own investigation. My mother faces potential criminal charges for fraud related to the pre-sold wellness packages. Several clients have demanded refunds for services that were never going to be delivered. My sister's situation has also deteriorated, but entirely through her own actions. After the Instagram incident, several of her nail clients canceled appointments, uncomfortable with the public drama. Her landlord at the strip mall, who saw the live stream where she called the location a hellhole that's killing her soul, has given her notice to vacate. She's also being investigated for fraud related to appointments she was taking for the non-existent high-end salon. The family dynamics have shifted dramatically. The extended family members who participated in the intervention have been notably silent. My uncle who warned me about giving in called to say he was proud of me for standing my ground. Several cousins have reached out to apologize for believing my mother's version of events. Last week, something unexpected happened. A woman came to my clinic with a scared, injured pit bull. She was clearly nervous, clutching a worn purse, and quietly asked about payment plans. When my receptionist was explaining our options, the woman started crying. She said she'd just left an abusive relationship and her ex had hurt her dog as punishment for leaving. She'd spent everything she had getting away and establishing a new apartment. I treated the dog personally, a fractured rib and several lacerations, all healable with proper care. When I told her there would be no charge, she broke down completely. She told me that her dog was the only reason she'd found the strength to leave, that knowing her dog depended on her had saved her life. That interaction clarified something for me. My building, my practice, isn't just a piece of property or a business. It's a place where real help happens, where actual healing occurs. Not the fake wellness my mother wanted to peddle, not the superficial beauty services my sister offers, but genuine, life-saving medical care. I've decided to formally establish a program offering free services to domestic violence survivors' pets. It's something I can afford to do because I've built this practice carefully, sustainably, without the drain of family members who see my success as their entitlement. Final update, 2 months later. As I write this final update, I'm sitting in my newly expanded clinic. The rooms my mother and sister plotted to steal are now a state-of-the-art rehabilitation center with an underwater treadmill for post-surgical recovery and physical therapy for injured animals. The irony that these spaces are now dedicated to actual healing rather than the fake wellness center my mother envisioned isn't lost on me. The legal consequences for my mother and sister have been severe but entirely self-inflicted. My mother was formally charged with fraud last month. 17 clients came forward seeking refunds for the wellness center packages she pre-sold, totaling over $30,000. Because she used her coaching credentials to legitimize the scheme and cross state lines with some of the transactions, several clients were from neighboring states, she faces both state and federal charges. Her lawyer negotiated a plea deal that includes full restitution, 2 years probation, and 200 hours of community service. The loss of her coaching certification has destroyed her career. Her website has been taken down, her social media presence deleted after dozens of former clients shared their negative experiences. The woman who spent years crafting an image as a wellness guru and emotional intelligence expert has been exposed as a fraud who tried to manipulate her own children for financial gain. My sister's consequences, while less severe legally, have been equally devastating to her life plans. The fraud investigation resulted in misdemeanor charges and a fine. She lost her rental space and had to move her business back to working from home, the very situation she claimed was impossible due to her mental health. The publicity around the incident has damaged her reputation significantly. She's had to rebuild her client base from scratch, and the high-end salon she dreamed of is now an impossibility. The family dynamics have shifted completely. The relatives who once participated in ambushing me now keep their distance from my mother and sister. During last month's family reunion, which I attended for the first time in months, my aunt apologized for allowing her home to be used for the intervention. She told me she'd been manipulated by my mother's life coach persona, the professional veneer making the lies seem like concerned observations. My uncle who had warned me about giving in shared more of his story. His brother had used similar tactics 20 years ago, claiming mental health issues to guilt him into co-signing loans and eventually taking over part of his business. It took him a decade to extricate himself legally and financially. He said watching me handle this situation with documentation and legal action instead of capitulation was like watching someone else fight the battle he wished he'd fought. The program for domestic violence survivors' pets has been more successful than I imagined. We've treated 12 animals so far, each one representing a person who found the courage to leave a dangerous situation. A local women's shelter has partnered with us, recognizing that concern for pets often keeps people in abusive relationships. The shelter director told me that knowing pets will receive free medical care has literally saved human lives. Last week, something remarkable happened. The woman with the pit bull I treated months ago returned. Not because her dog was hurt, but because she wanted to donate $500 to the program that had helped her. She's now in a better place, has a stable job, and wanted to ensure another person could receive the same help. Her dog, healthy and happy, wagged his tail so hard when he saw me that he knocked over our waiting room magazine rack. This is what real healing looks like. Not the performative wellness my mother tried to sell, not the surface-level beauty my sister offers, but genuine help that changes lives, both animal and human. My mother sent me a letter last week. Not an apology, I don't think she's capable of that, but a long explanation of how her business struggles led her to desperation, how she felt entitled to my success because she raised me, how my sister's genuine anxiety, apparently some of it was real, just weaponized, made her feel like a failed parent. It was, in essence, more manipulation, trying to make me feel guilty for protecting what I've built. I didn't respond. There's nothing to say. She made her choices, created elaborate schemes, threatened legal abuse, and attempted to destroy my reputation. The consequences she faces are not my responsibility. My sister has attempted contact too, though her approach is different. She sent a brief text saying she needs to talk, that she's getting real therapy now, that she understands what happened was wrong. I'm not ready for that conversation. Maybe someday, but trust, once shattered this completely, isn't easily rebuilt. The practice continues to thrive. We've hired another veterinarian to handle the increased caseload, and the rehabilitation center is booked solid. My days are still long, but they're filled with purpose rather than dread. My phone rings without triggering anxiety. I can focus on surgery without wondering what manipulation awaits me afterward. I've learned valuable lessons through this ordeal. Document everything. Trust your instincts when something feels wrong. Don't let family use blood relations as a weapon. And most importantly, what you build through your own hard work and dedication belongs to you, regardless of who feels entitled to it. The cat whose eye I repaired on that exhausting night months ago came in for a follow-up last week. She's doing wonderfully, vision fully restored, living her best life. Her owner brought me cookies and a card that said, "Thank you for having the steadiest hands and the kindest heart." I keep that card on my desk, a reminder that the real value of what I've built isn't in the building itself or the equipment or even the business success. It's in the lives saved, the suffering prevented, the hope restored. That's something my mother and sister never understood. They saw my practice as property to be divided, not as a place where healing happens. As I finish writing this, I can hear dogs barking in the boarding area, my staff preparing for afternoon appointments, the underwater treadmill running as a golden retriever recovers from hip surgery. These sounds, once drowned out by the noise of family manipulation and guilt, are now clear and purposeful. I built this. I protected it. And now, free from the exhausting drain of toxic family dynamics, I can focus on what matters, using my skills and resources to help those who actually need it, both the four-legged patients who trust me with their lives and the brave humans who refuse to leave them behind. The building my mother and sister wanted so desperately isn't just walls and rooms. It's a sanctuary, a place of healing, A testament to what can be accomplished when you refuse to let others' entitlement overshadow your own achievements. And it will remain exactly what I built it to be, a veterinary practice dedicated to saving lives, not a stage for fake wellness or manufactured crises. That's my justice. That's my revenge. And most importantly, that's my purpose.